I wanted to share a key lesson I learned in 2024, which is the difference between passion and purpose. So, for most of my life, I've really just been following my passion, when in reality, that's a completely wrong approach. When I should have been focusing on not purpose, but something else, the intersection of passion and purpose. And a book was recommended to me that helped me like navigate this topic, and the book is called Greater Work. And so I'm going to explore like summary of the book and basically everything it taught me about passion and purpose and how I'm thinking about that going ahead next year, because I'm actually not going back to university. I'm taking a gap year. So this book has really helped me decide what I wanted to do with my life. So here's kind of my summary of the book. It basically says like passion is doing what you love, while purpose is doing what contributes. And I think that's a great way to put it, because I never really subscribed to the idea that you need to follow your passion all the way, because I was passionate about video games. Doesn't mean I want to be like a video game designer. So that's definitely like one aspect of that. And the other aspect of it is like passion is like it's like always changing. It's like emotional. And the reason I say that is because doing what you love, doing what excites you, it's playing on emotions. And so emotions aren't very like stable. And relying and betting on my entire life on emotions is probably not a good idea. And that's where purpose comes into play. Purpose is kind of like the bedrock, the underlying like first principles that actually drive you forward and push you towards the meaningful goal. And so when I think about passion, what am I passionate about right now? Well, sure, like maybe still video games, but in terms of the work context, YouTube is definitely a huge like area that I'm very interested in. And I would literally like, in my spare time, watch videos about like YouTube itself. And I guess that kind of shows what I'm passionate about in terms of that regard. And also just learning. Like I love like learning with like human podcasts or just any Hormozy video and just learning new things. I think that's something that genuinely excites me. And the way I kind of thought about this to come up with this answer was, if I had all the time in the world, what would I still be doing? And obviously this is within a work context, and that would be learning. And if this was just out of a work context, just for the sake of completeness, that would obviously be like health and relationships as well. But in terms of purpose, so passion's great, like YouTube, that's all great. But my purpose of doing YouTube is really for like education, because that is something that fundamentally drives me. And in the previous video, I talked about like my experiences with like bad teachers, why that drove me to realize the importance of education. But also I like see the beauty in it. The way Justin defined genius, I found very interesting. He basically said genius is when you achieve something that you thought was impossible. That's what a genius is. If you see someone flying in the air doing something that's impossible, you would think that guy's a genius or a freak in that case. But regardless, like the idea is that learning is such a beautiful thing because it allows people to achieve what they thought was impossible. And I have many examples in my life where that was the case. And so that is something that fundamentally drives me forward. And like before this book, I didn't like think about it that consciously. And so over the past few days, I've been really like contemplating deeply about it. I've been going through the book and other resources to really like distill down what my purpose is. Because now that I have that in mind, I constantly remind myself, hey, the work I'm doing right now links with the purpose. And I think that's another thing that I used to struggle with, but now I'm working towards it, which is when I have like a task to do. Let's say I'm making a thumbnail, like potentially a tedious task. And sometimes I do it without actually realizing the broader implication of it. And one of the key findings that like I found in the book, which is a great recommendation, is that it's very subjective. Like two people can do the exact same job and one may feel purpose and one may not feel purpose. So it's not actually intrinsically tied with the task itself. It's more tied with your own perception of the task. And so that's really changed my mindset with how I'm approaching what's purposeful, what's not. And obviously the reason I bring all of this up, and I mentioned this before, is because it just allows me to feel more energy like every time I do work. And that's something that I've definitely felt over like the last like few days. When I think about this, it genuinely like, drives me forward to like want to improve, because now I know, hey, there's a broader mission behind it. So then the book goes through a couple of key questions here. And when I looked and went through all these questions, there were definitely some that I resonated more with, and some that I still agreed with, but they weren't like my strongest answers. Like they weren't a strongly agree. So when it comes to enjoying the task I do every day, I would say right now there's like a balance. There's tasks that I enjoy a lot, and there's other tasks not that I don't enjoy, but they're kind of just part of the role. Like sometimes just going through and like downloading the files, adjusting like the font, the colors of the thumbnails. That's just a part of the job. Is that the most enjoyable thing? Well, not necessarily, but it is part of the responsibility. And I do think an important thing is like obviously in an ideal world, you can have all the tasks aligned with what you find most enjoyable. But to get to that stage, oftentimes you have to like do almost like the most basic task because you need to develop that expertise and understanding. So yeah, that's something I'm all good with. So the next couple of things in terms of achieving results and success, this is definitely part of it, but I wouldn't say that's like a huge driver, especially when it comes to like external like views. Like cool, like we're getting more subscribers, and obviously that's like a consideration we have to make because ultimately that is the goal of the YouTube channel. But in terms of what drives me to do a particular task, it's not so much like achieving like a particular metric. And so going on with all of these, I think the most important one that I've resonated with is learning and growing. I think whenever I do I can study work, this is always at the forefront of my mind to learn and grow professionally and personally as much as I can. So that has been a major driving force, and personally for me, that's almost like a personal like purpose. So there's a broader purpose of like educating the next generation or educating people through a megaphone, which is the YouTube channel. And then there's a personal purpose, which is I need to learn and grow as much as possible in order for me to be able to teach other people. So this is definitely the area that I like strongly agree with, and it's something that drives me a lot. And this is kind of what I mentioned like before. Like there's the social mission of like educating, like changing how the world learns, and then there's the personal meaning of like me wanting to become a better learner and learn as much as possible myself so I can achieve that social mission. And in the book it also says to like try and be really excellent in one job activity. And one interesting thing I found, especially with like, I'm just going to use high school subjects as an example. When I got good at something, I tended to enjoy it more. And that's why like now, if I'm not good at something, I don't have the right to say I don't enjoy it because I'm just not good at it. And so my goal is to really become good at like YouTube strategy, especially because like YouTube strategy is not just contained within like YouTube itself, but the way of thinking applies to everything, business, and just many other domains, which is why I really want to focus on just getting that down pat. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'm very curious to hear what you may think, and if you have any areas you want to provide feedback on or challenge me on, I'm all ears. I'm really keen just to, always make sure I'm always getting like the extra feedback and making sure I'm staying on track. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, just leave them down in the comments below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.